So, you finally managed to snag a copy of the critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV. And in this game, you wanted to play as a healer or a tank. But there's one thing barring your way, and that's the fear of letting your party down. Don't worry, it'll probably be the other way around. Don't worry, I got you back. Whether this is your first time or have been healing and tanking for quite a while, there are still moments where we end up having some anxiety for a multitude of reasons. Could be the first time doing a dungeon, or maybe content with confusing mechanics, or maybe it's just content that you haven't touched in a while, and maybe you've forgotten the mechanics in that content. And don't fret, we've all been in that position before. And to alleviate this issue, I have a couple of tips that would, could, and should help you out the next time you get your first time jitters. The first and most important tip that I have is reading your tooltips. Please read your tooltips.
Jared, could you read number 23 for the class?
No, I cannot.
What up? I'm Jared, I'm 19, and I never fucking learned how to read.
They're a great way for you to understand what your skill does and how you can use them to help the party out. Some skills have additional effects such as damage mitigation or increasing healing effects. Some skills have shields, some has healing regen. The fact of the matter is that you'll never know what your class is capable of if you don't know what their skill do. I remember back in Shadowbringers that I have a scholar friend who is also a co-healer at the time. They didn't know that using their recitation skill as a scholar allowed them to use cogitation for free without using their etherflow stacks. And the moment that they found out, their mind was blown basically. Like, they couldn't believe that that was an added effect of that skill. So the moral of the story is please read your tooltips. You'll thank yourself for it. Tip number 2. Use your cooldowns and OGCD heals. I believe that dungeons are a great way to practice healing for healers and tanking for tanks, obviously. Mostly because you can play a dangerous how low can you go with the tank's HP. For tanks, you can pull wall to wall and actually use your mitigation skills and actually feel the difference. In dungeons, the most damage that your tank will get are actually going to be from the trash mobs leading up to the boss. And in these situations, do not be afraid to use your big boy heals and your big boy cooldowns to help alleviate the oncoming damage that the tanks will receive. Good rule of thumb that I personally go with is to use your 60 seconds or 90-second cooldowns and off global heals. That way that you keep this cooldown going, and so by the time you get to the next boss, these cooldowns should be done or almost finishing their cooldown. Tip number 3. DPS is the name of the game. Yep, you heard me right. Healers and tanks also need to do DPS, which kinda contradicts with role, but that is why you have a single target and an AoE DPS skill. You know, they're there for a reason. Now, this tip might actually lean more towards healers than tanks, mostly because tanks are just blue DPS with mitigation skills. So in Final Fantasy XIV, everyone is a DPS. Healers are a green DPS, and tanks are blue DPS, like I said before. And while DPS is one of the things that we as healers are able to do, our utmost priority still is to heal the party when there is something to heal. On the times that we don't have anything to heal during our downtimes or times where you really have nothing to do, You don't have cards to pull as an ASD, or you don't have to summon your fairy because you forgot to summon them in the beginning of the dungeon. Try and throw in a DPS skill there from time to time. Now, it might be a lot of pressure to DPS while also maintaining the party's HP at the same time. And my advice for that is to kind of take it slow. Focus on healing first and then add in a DPS skill in between. That way, you're still kind of practicing with that healer mindset, but you're also starting to improve more towards adding in the DPS in between. Of course, when push comes to shove, it's definitely okay to just stop DPSing altogether and focus on healing. There are going to be times, especially on lower dungeons, where the damage and the mitigation from the tanks are just not enough, and you actually have to do GCD heals. And especially in lower dungeons, you're not gonna have all of your kit, you're not gonna have your skills at your disposal, and all you have are your GCD healing. And you know, that's totally fine. Just keep the tank's HP up, keep the party's HP up, and then when there's nothing to do, then use the DPS. It's always going to be the balance between DPSing and healing, and you kind of just have to get comfortable doing both at the same time. Tip number 4. First time content? Always let your party know if it's your first time in the dungeon, or if it's your first time healing the dungeon. One of the coolest thing about the 14 community is that there are a bunch of people who are willing to teach much newer players. So don't be afraid to let them know it's your first time here, or it's your first time in a new dungeon, or a new trial, or any other content that you're really not comfortable doing first time around. Always let them know. I mean, who knows, maybe someone in the party has done this dungeon before and can give you tips on certain mechanics or give you pointers on which mechanics to look for. It's always going to be beneficial for you and your party to know that this is your first time. One of the better ways to become a better healer is to keep your party informed at what you are capable of doing and what you're not capable of doing. Help them help you. And now comes the last tip, or technically it's like 3 tips in one, but whatever. So for my last tip, make mistakes, have fun, and have confidence in yourself. Don't be afraid with making mistakes and causing a wipe. Sometimes wiping actually can help you be a better healer. It's a natural part of the game, and sometimes it's inevitable. Just look at the raiders, like the savage raiders. They wipe all the time before being able to clear the boss. And sometimes there will just be days where like things are not going so well and it's just bad luck. It's all okay. It happens to the best of us. Also, be a little bit more confident in yourself. You know how the saying goes, fake it till you make it. And as a healer, fake it till you make it. You know, no one starts off as a good healer. We all started as a crappy one. We probably all started as a cure bot. I definitely did, because I didn't know what I was doing half the time. But with repetition and practice, and maybe a little bit of a confidence boost, that's how you become a good healer. And last part of this tip is to have fun. As the great Miss Marie Kondo once asked, does it spark joy? If playing a healer only brings you stress and anxiety and suffering, then maybe that's a sign to stop.
Stop it. Get some help.
Take a break, play another class or another game that actually sparks joy for you. And once that you're in this like happy mental state, then come back to healing after that. At the end of the day, Final Fantasy XIV is just a game. Nothing more and nothing less. It's there for your own enjoyment and entertainment. And with that being said, thank you for watching this video. I hope that some of these tips have helped you tackle becoming a healer or a tank in Final Fantasy XIV. If you're a veteran and you have some tips of your own, please feel free to comment down below. I'd love to see what others have picked up over their healing or tanking journey. So if you have any tips for me personally, tank tips, let me know. If this video has helped you in any way, shape, or form, please give it a thumbs up or a like. That way I know that I'm actually making some good content. and I helped you guys one way or another. And until the next video, see ya!